Stream is being started. Not yet streaming. YouTube, tell me when we start. We're officially live now. Yes, it's loading. Okay, so hi everybody. This is our very first Changeling Artist Collective auction live panel, and our theme is on dry land, and we'll be discussing whether or not it's really a marathon and not a sprint. So we'll most likely hear us talk about something like grit and perseverance, but also hope and optimism and other very interesting things. So you better stay tuned so all our collective wisdom can just flow from our minds into your minds through a screen, and you better now just hear who we are. So I am Jana. I am not very important, but my guests are. So Kmye, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Sure, thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Kmye, Kmye Chen. I am an illustrator based in Paris in France, and I mostly work on high fantasy designs, which is princesses, all this kind of type of subjects. I mostly work in traditional media, watercolors and markers, and I like to explore monsters and beauties in my work.
Okay, Natasa, your turn.
Hi everyone, I'm Natasa Ilincic. I'm an artist and illustrator based in Edinburgh, Scotland. I work mainly in watercolor. I focus on themes such as like folklore, mythology, darker corners of history. My latest book is A Companion of Witches, and I'm currently working on an oracle deck based on the book.
Right, Heather, you want to take over?
Hi, I'm Heather Hudson. If you want to check out my work, my site is artofheatherhudson.com. I am a fantasy illustrator / artist in Seattle, Washington, USA. I started making art back in the 90s, working as an illustrator for tabletop RPGs and CCGs, probably the best known of which was Magic the Gathering. These days I work on a mix of illustration and personal projects. I started in traditional media. About a decade ago, I switched to digital because it seemed like a sensible thing to do. And lately I've come back to traditional brush and paint media. It feels better and it's better for my eyes. I like making art that tells stories, and I like drawing mostly amiable monsters.
Okay, cool. So now as we're talking, so we think that we're talking about grit, you know, how we can keep making art and how we can have great careers as artists. But I feel that that can look very different for everybody. And I think we all at some point get to a point where we wonder if this is something we want to continue doing, or we wonder whether this is something we really want to do as a job. And perhaps we want to quit because we have a burnout, or we feel like we don't love it anymore, or maybe it seems very hard. And so I wanted to ask whether any of you had such a moment where you were thinking about taking a time out or maybe quitting art completely. I mean, obviously you haven't, but was there a time when you thought, wow, this is it, I don't think I really want to do this anymore? Kmye, you're always on my screen. It's your curse.
Okay. I know, I see the screens jumping as well, so I'm not sure we're seeing the same people that are showing on video. Sure, I'm not sure if I'm the best person to start on this question, because I think of the four of us, I'm the only one who is not a full-time artist. my main professional activity is that I'm a scientist. So the question is slightly different for me in that the question for me was always, how do I keep both activities afloat and just not completely stop working on my art, because my main activity is quite time consuming and quite demanding. And so I've definitely had plenty of occasions along my career to wonder if I would still have the time, would still have the energy, would still have the drive to keep doing, maybe not art, because I think I would always have been drawing in some way, but to actually keep doing this at a professional or semi-professional level. And there's plenty of times where I was considering stopping my professional activity as an artist during my studies, during my PhD, during my career more recently. And somehow every time that I think I'm going to stop, like, it just comes back. It's just unescapable.
Can't stop it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sounds like a haunting, like it's...
Well, it is in a way, in that...
But I say that in a positive way.
Yeah, no, I got that. It's just, it's such a big part of who I am that I feel like if I was to stop, like, I would lose a part of myself, if that makes sense.
I think, but for you, it's maybe even harder to keep going because you have like this other thing in your life that takes up a lot of your time, and that is making most of your money. So
yes and no, in that I don't have the pressure to make it work. Like, if I don't make money from my art activity, that's fine. That's completely okay. So in a way, it takes off quite a lot of the pressure. I can just be like, oh, okay, I feel like quitting, but maybe I should just, reduce a little bit. Just be less, spend less time online, spend less time on trying to have a nice portfolio and making sure the shop is running okay. Like, it doesn't matter as much. So in a way, that makes it also easier to just adjust my activity to the level that I can provide at a given time.
You can easier hit the pause button.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice. So Heather, what's your take on this?
My take on this. There have definitely been times where I wished I had a second and more lucrative trade I could fall back on. There have been times when I look at what I've been doing and realize, I guess I needed to take some time off. I needed to step away from what I was trying to do. I don't know that you can quit making art, though. Like Kmye said, you can sort of let art rest for a year or two, or it just comes back. It's like dandelions. You can't, if you have the urge to make some things, you can't just stop. You can let it rest for a while. You can redirect it. I've seen frustrated creatives jump into different kinds of art. I've seen painters become writers. I've seen illustrators become photographers. I think the urge to make persists. But I think if you need a break, or if you need to step away from that kind of art you've been doing and you don't take it, you can really hurt yourself. Was that sort of germane to the issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
It works really well. So you didn't have like a hitting the wall moment. Nothing
I've seen
specific.
people hit the wall and just keep grinding, and they can really burn out doing that.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important to, and maybe that's a good reason to have multiple kinds of creativeness that you can both enjoy and make income from, so that you can switch in the same way that as an artist I enjoy having multiple paintings going at once, so I can switch from one painting to another and let the first one rest for a little while and simmer in the back of my brain and then come back to it. Because it's really hard working on one painting solidly without being able to take some kind of break. I guess maybe a whole life an artist like that.
Yeah. I think, Natasha, you're also writing with your witches, so you definitely have another creative outlet for that. So
Yeah, I guess so. They're very different, though. You know, writing and painting. I think I feel like I sound a bit like a broken record when I say this because it's something that I say so often. But for us who do a creative job, it's so important to have a creative outlet that you don't monetize as well, so that you don't have the pressure to just do well in something that you just enjoy creating. So, you know, for me, that's world building and like writing on the side, some photography maybe as well, though I'm not particularly good at it. But it's just good to have something on the side like that. And personally, yeah, I have felt like quitting, but it was mostly like an instinctive reaction that you just get when you're frustrated. That just, yeah, it's sparked out of frustration. So like, I remember when I had like bureaucratic issues with self-employment, or you know, even when you just have a job that you feel like it's not exactly worth your time and you're putting a lot of effort in it, and like the rewards that you reap are not as good as you would expect, and you just say to yourself, "Oh, I wish I had like a 9 to 5 job, and it would be so much simpler." And you say that out of frustration, and it's not necessarily simpler because that 9 to 5 job could be as frustrating as your, normal job is. But yeah, I never actually felt like quitting, like seriously quitting. It's just like like an instinctive reaction when things are not as good as you hope they would be. I've sometimes thought about what my life would have been if I just decided to keep working in archaeology. But at the end of the day, I think that anyone working in an archaeological dig would have given the same contribution that I would have given, as in anyone could do my work on an archaeological dig, but in art, my voice is somehow unique, so that counts for something. So this is what I keep doing.
yeah, but nice. That's good. I'm satisfied with all these replies. You're doing very well. You're doing very well. So you don't really have to work very hard to keep the creative flame alive, do you? It sounds like you just can't stop. And in a way, I understand this because I usually always have to do something, but right now I mostly want to do writing for novels or stand-up or anything like that. But I don't feel like that much like drawing. So if you feel at some point that the job you're right now doing is getting hard and you're getting tired, what would you tell me should I do to keep the flame alive? And this is just personal advice for me. It has nothing to do with our audience. Just spend, please, 15 minutes on telling me how to solve my life's problems.
Oh my. And I know nothing about your life, which makes anything I say completely pointless. What is your life like? What is in your life right now that you're having difficulty finding that spark that makes the art happen for you?
Well, I think I've just neglected storytelling for a very long time. Because the other day I was writing an email, and the person I was writing to first told me that, yeah, there were people who had the same dream as we did, and they wanted the job that we're doing now. And I was like, I'm not sure I ever wanted to do what I'm doing right now, because I always wanted to do comics, which had a lot of storytelling element, and I'm feeling that that's really missing in illustration. Also, the entertainment part that you have with webcomics, what I did when I was younger, is totally missing. So I'm just thinking I need to be a more rounded person as a creative. But still, what do you do when you want to really keep going with what you're doing? Because actually this was supposed to be for our audience. I was just talking bullshit a lot.
Personally, I don't know if someone else wants to start.
There you go.
I just give myself like a very strict routine. So usually when you have a boss, they tell you what to do, and because you are your own boss, you just kind of have to do that through self-discipline. So and a routine does help me like keep that going, because it means that I will stop working at 6 and I will give myself time to relax, and everything goes more smoothly when all those basic things are put in place. So when you're when you just cover your bases, I guess. So for me, a strict routine works, and I know that like if I keep working late, if I do late nights, then I'll eventually end up not being able to sleep and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just about that. Plus, in addition to that, you also have just external elements that can keep you inspired in a way. So like watching films, listening to music, reading other people's art, video games, all that. For me, it used to be a lot about exploring the outdoors, and of course now I can't do it, so I'm just kind of relying on these indoor activities for now.
Is there anything else you guys want to say, to talk about when it comes to sticking to your career long term, even if you hit a speed bump and things don't seem to be going where you want to go? You don't get any jobs or the attention you'd like.
I am terrible at routine, so I will pass along a thought that I have sometimes used, at least when I'm working for outside clients, which is somebody else could probably do this better than me, but they're not here right now, and the work needs to be done. So I guess I'm going to finish this now. And for some reason, I find that supremely comforting, because there are so many people who could do any type of art better than I. But the project is mine, and finishing is good, so we go forward. And eventually it stops being horrible, and as you get closer to the end, you begin to see how it could actually be quite good if you just run down the list of fixes that you've made for yourself. And then suddenly it's done, huzzah! And you're on to the next one, and the entire cycle begins again. But after the 30th or the 40th or the 50th piece, you realize the cycle is just that, just how things go as you begin and you get into the horrible sticky middle, and then you find your way out the other side.
Yeah,
I agree with what Heather is saying, that it's quite a cycle. For me, the difficult part is actually to get started, because when I'm into something, I usually like go right all the way to the end, and once I'm in the process, I really enjoy it, and I don't have trouble finishing most of the time. But very often what happens to me that I finish something and I'm happy or maybe not so happy with it, and then I'm just like, okay, I'll give myself a little bit of rest for a few days, and then I have another project and I'm just like, oh, but tonight I'm tired, I'll start it tomorrow, I will have time tomorrow. And then on the next day I'm just like, I don't feel like doing this today, and I'll do it tomorrow. And it can sometimes take like days and days and weeks, and it's happened to me that it was months without me starting a new piece, just because I'm just like, I can start tomorrow. And what I find to be really helpful to combat this is to couple my working on art with another activity that I find relaxing and enjoyable. And that can be anything. That really depends on what you like to do when you are relaxing and when you are having some time that you consider to be rest time. For me, a lot of it is just like watching YouTube videos. For example, I will just start on a playlist of something that I enjoy, and I will let it run in the background, and I will take my sketchbook or my pad of sheets of paper and I will start drawing. And after usually like 15 or 20 minutes, I will completely stop paying attention to the video and I will just be drawing. And once I've started, I'm good to go until the end usually. But I find that coupling this difficult part of the work for me with something that I personally find enjoyable and trying to have this positive feedback of I'm doing something that I enjoy and that's relaxing to me is really helpful to just keep the cycle going.
I'm actually doing something similar. I mean, I'm also really sticking to a very strict schedule for me, but usually at some point in my artwork, I start to get a little bit disengaged because a lot of rendering is just working the wrist. But listening to audiobooks that are really good and that I really enjoy makes me want to start the next day and just get into it because I want to know how that story continues. And when the book is done, the artwork is done as well, like magic. So
That's actually very good. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I think we're all, most of us are still pretty early, I think, in our careers. I think Heather, you've been doing this for a little bit longer. I mean, I think, I don't know, I'm the beginner, the mostest beginner of all. But what role do you think takes optimism when it comes to keeping on course with pursuing art? You know, because being persistent and having the grit to continue, I feel like you kind of have to have an idea of where you want to go, and you also have to kind of believe that you can get there. Or am I wrong? Is this more like a enjoying the ride kind of situation? Your experience. Go. Somebody.
Pick somebody. Eeny, meeny, miny,
You, Heather. You spoke first.
Oh, Lord. I think I am actually perhaps not the best person, but for what it's worth, I think optimism is an important part of beginning a life in art, but I don't think it holds up well in the long term. I don't think I know that many self-described optimistic old freelancers. I think habit and ritualizing systems that help you, whether that's getting into the studio at 9 o'clock or setting up your life to work until midnight, just finding a system that works for you, and just building it into your life so that you don't have to make the decision to start work, or you don't have to make the decision to do the drawing versus painting on something else, so that you have the rituals in place. For what it's worth, and this probably makes no sense to you young ladies yet, goals have to be revised as you get older. Grit is a lovely thing, and optimism is a lovely thing. But after 20 or 30 years, you change. Your eyes begin to fail. Your energy level drops after 6 o'clock in the evening. And the world changes. And the world expects you to turn things in as digital files. And the world expects you to build a social media presence as part of the cachet and the package that you bring to independent projects. And in another 10 or 15 years, the world will change again, and all the systems that you understand as normal and necessary will be changed. And so optimism is lovely, but build your systems, but also be prepared to change your systems as time passes and the world changes. And after that hideously depressing package of information, I bow to a younger and more hopeful artist.
It's not depressing. I think it's
I am depressing. But
I think it's a very real thing what you said. You know, it's not exactly pessimist or optimist. It's just a very real view.
yeah, and very valuable. I think if we were all sitting here like
sure we should have started with that. I'm sorry. Now that I've sent a flight of storm crows over the whole discussion, let's hear about hope and optimism.
yeah. So why not? That's Natasha. Kmye,
No,
hope, optimism, go.
Oh no, I wasn't going to, be the one for optimism, but I'll tell you what I think. If art is like, if you plan on having art as your main source of income and or sole source of income, then I don't think you have the luxury to rely on optimism and inspiration, because they're just too flimsy, they're too unstable in a way. So at the end of the month, you'll have bills to pay, and you can't rely just on having days full of inspiration and optimism to be able to do work. You have to rely on something else. So, and now more than ever, I think it's becoming apparent because of the situation we're in. And I have so many friends that work in the creative industry and that feel completely drained during this pandemic. And they struggle to create, I struggle to create, and I think it's quite a widespread thing. And yeah, sometimes it's difficult to have that energy to keep projects going, I think. And I had this a couple of months ago when I announced my new book project, Metamorphosis, and I had just announced that, and then all this went down, right? So, and I found myself a bit lost, and I felt like I didn't have the right energy to do that. So what I did is I decided to put my energy into something a bit smaller and a bit more manageable. So I put that on the back burner, and I started working on something that was a bit less intense, which is my Oracle deck that I'm doing now. And I'll keep doing that until I'm ready to go back to the big thing. So ultimately, I think that good management, having a plan B, having a plan C, a plan D if necessary, just covering all those bases, that's more important than just having optimism and inspiration. I mean, those are good things, but if you want to do a marathon, it's okay if you just keep walking on a slower pace for a while until you can find your breath again, in a way. So there's nothing wrong about taking it slow sometimes.
Yeah, and you have to try and do the hard work to get going, keep going. Another word of hope, somebody?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be extremely optimistic as well, but more like pragmatic, like Heather and Natasa. And I something that Heather said earlier really resonates with me. It's like you have to keep revising your expectations and your goals all the time. For me, something that was really difficult for a long time and that I've had to work on a lot is that because I'm not a full-time artist, I don't make progress and I don't make projects at the same rate as most of my fellow artists do. And I'm surrounded by people, very talented people, especially through Changeling, who make all of these amazing projects that kickstart them and that make very visible progress over short periods of time. And it took me a long time to realize that I can't have, it takes work and practice to get better and to get these big projects on the go, and that there's no way I can produce this amount and this quality of work in the same amount of time. And so I had to revise my expectations for myself quite a lot, and that was really hard in the beginning because I was just like, what is the point? If I don't make progress, it's just not really worth it. And actually, it's like Natasa said. There's work that only I can do. There's art that only I can produce, and that's still important and that's still valuable. But you really need, if you're playing the long game, to be calibrating your expectations to the type of career that you want, and to try to make it work in a way that is manageable and is not like overly optimistic and overly ambitious is not the right word, but unrealistic, I would say.
Not wanting to be the next. I can only think of horrible male artists right now. Not wanting to be the next Leonor Fini. just when you start out?
Well, you could want that, but you have to be cold and hard about it and assess whether that's a reasonable and attainable goal, right? And if it's not, you should plan to get another goal that works better for what you want to do and what you can do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she had 40 cats. I think I can manage that, maybe.
That's a full-time job already.
True. Also, I need much larger space. I can't keep 40 cats in this room. I'd love to, but no.
I will say one thing about goals and improvement or leveling up, which is, I suspect that each artist has the internal resources to create one kind of art better than another. That I may yearn to be the 21st century's answer to N.C. Wyeth, but that might not be the kind of art that my internal resources and the circumstances of my life have designed me to do with the greatest fluidity. So, hello? Sorry, my screen went blank for a moment. So part of enduring as an artist is trying to figure out, not merely to improve your art and make yourself the very bestest artist you can be, which is basically a very empty turn of phrase, but to figure out what kind of art makes you happy and what kind of art you can feed yourself by doing, and finding out a way to make as much of that as you can, to make it the best that you think it can become, and to find a community to share it with. So it just sounds like self-improvement and grit seems so very general, whereas I think each of us is trying to fine-tune a highly personal voice that we're trying to figure out what it is in the first place. You do beautiful, beautiful work, and I look forward to seeing how it develops in the next decade. Yana.
Thank you.
Olive.
It wasn't supposed to be about me. Yeah, all of you guys. All doing great work. And I want to see it now. I know you brought me some.
I brought some. Shall I go first?
Yes, go first.
In the fine tradition of having the oldest and most likely to kick the bucket artist.
No, don't say this.
Okay. I have 3 pieces in the show. Basically, I went into works I'd finished recently and hauled out 3 that seemed appropriate. So I realize the light is terrible. I don't even know if you're seeing this, but this is Puss in Boots Loses His Hair, which is one of my watercolor and pencil sketches with a certain amount of gouache. And I've been exploring much lighter themes the last few years, especially in the run-up to the 2016 elections in my country. I sort of moved away from Lovecraft and started throwing myself into the lighter sort of folklore. And if that's escapism, then I can't think of a finer time for it. But fairy tales, my new oeuvre. This is just a little exploration of trees. I don't do a lot of trees. I tend to, left to my own self, I tend to draw figures in space, which is very limited. So this is my exploration of a tree, which is very much becoming a character. And I thought it would be lovely if it could go out in the world and find a home. And this last piece is one of my coyote children, which I've drawn on and off over the last, I'd say, decade or so. Just the little half coyote, half child, a creature that means well, but is handicapped by a lack of human experience from doing well. We have a saying here in the U.S., were you born in a barn? Meaning, have you no couth? Have you no social skills? And I speak for myself and anyone else out there who, in fact, has no social skills. But we mean well. And we're really sorry about the horrible thing we just did, but we mean well. So, and that is perhaps why I keep coming back to the little half coyote, half child creature, making a mess, but they mean well.
It's wonderful.
Let's say what?
It's wonderful. I love this.
Thank you so much. So that's what I've been doing lately, and perhaps some of them will find a new home this week.
I hope so. Next one.
Onwards.
Kmye.
Okay. Let me just grab my thing. Okay. So this is the artwork. I hope you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually the picture that Jana picked for the banner today, and I was just like, but that's actually a perfect choice. So I should probably auction this artwork. So this is an ink and markers illustration that I painted last year, I think. And this was initially created for a tarot deck, for a collective tarot deck that I did with the 78 Tarot group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was illustrating the card for Judgment. And the theme of the deck was mythology. And we were to explore all kinds of mythologies around the world. And I picked Celtic mythology, which speaks to me at a personal level for family reasons. A lot of my family is from Brittany, which has Celtic roots. And this is the Morrigan goddess, Celtic goddess of immortal thing of war, who is welcoming fallen soldiers on the field to not exactly paradise, but basically welcoming those soldiers who have fallen on the field. Mm-hmm. And so she's represented as a blind woman surrounded by crows. That will be my contribution to the auction. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my explorations of mythological themes, which is one of my favorite topics of exploration.
That's such a lovely and fresh expression of the Morrigan. I don't think I've ever seen her depicted like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the colors. I think it's a wonderful piece.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the atmosphere is great.
Thank you.
And I also love the earthy tones. Just why I picked it for the banner. I'm just so happy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So Nata, it's time for you.
Yeah, I have two pieces in this auction. There are two companions. I don't know if you can see them well.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was the first one that I did, and this was last year. It was painted for a Scottish publication about unicorn folklore, and as you know, the unicorn is the national animal of Scotland. And this piece is based on a statue from this beautifully elaborate courtyard fountain in Linlithgow Palace, which is like a castle just outside of Edinburgh. I think it's 15th century, dated to the 15th century, more or less. And I don't know, I just enjoyed painting this so much because of the stone texture and moss growing on it, that I thought, well, I'll just give it a companion to go with it. So I came up with this one here. And this depicts a periton, which is another creature from mythology that combines elements of a stag and a bird. I have these two little friends in the auction.
They're wonderful. I hope that they can go to a home together. Imagine they look really nice if they're both framed and looking at each other next to a doorway.
Yeah, that was the idea, actually, yeah.
It's like a pot in your own home. And if you go through it...
They are called guardians, so yeah, I can see that.
When you go through, you can go to Scotland. It's magic.
It's like Narnia, only it's Scotland.
Yes.
Only you can actually go there, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and we still have a minute left.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a little bit more left before we go to questions. So I will show you my own artwork.
Yay!
Which is this little fox in a tree. It's actually part of the study regimen I started for myself, and I started a Facebook group for it, which is basically because it's just the practice I wanted to do, and I want to practice painting trees. And for my last little challenge, I wanted to work on a reference photograph I took and turn it into an illustration by changing just a little bit. And there was a texture in there that already looked like a creature, and I was like, what if it's a fox? And I started sketching it, and I thought, wow, it's a fox, and it's growing from a tree like a dryad, but a fox, so it's even better. And my brain just started going, okay, what if foxes are born from trees, and what would this fox do? And I wrote a little text accompanying it, and I love the concept so much, so I hope I can take this illustration a bit further at some point when I have the time. Yeah. I
Are
like
you going to
it.
do something with the text as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna probably post it if I have a finished illustration for this at some point. It's a bit overly dramatic. That's just how I roll. It's about a poor fox that is grown from the tree and then has to face the world and gets lost in the mist and doesn't find its way home until it realizes that it's made from the same wood and can listen to its heart and go back and crawl back into the tree. And somehow it also sounds like it's dying now, and that's just like a metaphor for being born and dying again. And I don't want it to be. I want this to be an actually safe tree for foxes. Anyhow, this as a quick update from what's happening in my brain. We're gonna go to actually answering audience questions now, and the first one was actually for Kmye on whether you are mean on becoming a full-time artist, but I think you've already answered this.
Well, that's not in the plans at this time. And it's kind of one of these never say never kind of things. There should be a point where I might be completely burnt out from my science career, and I would decide to switch to art full time, or like I could have a career mishap that could always happen on the science side. At this time, it is not in the plans. I really actually enjoy science. And I'm really happy to have the opportunity to make a career in science. So for the foreseeable future, I'm planning to keep science being my main career and art being like my secondary activity.
Cool. So next question. What would be your dream project to work on if time and money were not an issue? Heather, start.
I actually have a collection of short stories set in a world I've created, which I would like to illustrate and self-publish as a chapter book, only I don't know what my artwork looks like. So I'm actually doing a tarot project to figure out what my artwork looks like so that I can go on and illustrate my own stories. And hopefully the art would be consistent throughout. So that's actually what I'm doing. And it's not about a dream project because I don't have the money. It's a dream project because I don't know how to do this thing, so I'm doing this even larger, more stupid thing to figure out how the thing's done. So those are my two projects, which are both equally ludicrous, and yet here they are.
But it's a dream project, and you're working on them.
And that's the lovely thing. My life is not terribly gritty or well organized. I certainly have no idea what the future holds, particularly in these disorganized and ludicrous and sad times. But somehow I'm still here and I'm still drawing. So right now that's pretty good. So I'm going forward with that. That's what I got.
Sounds great to me. So,
Okay.
Nata, what is your dream project? What do you want to work on? Time and money are not an issue.
Yeah, that's a difficult one because my dream project was the compendium, which I finished last year. So now I have to think about, okay, what's the next one? But yeah, I don't know. I think my personal projects are all tiny dreams, I guess. I don't have a huge, big dream project that seems unattainable. I'm just slowly and gradually working through tinier projects, I guess.
But what's the project you're working on right now, the one with the metamorphosis theme? Is that a dream project in a way, or I mean, would you
It's
consider
a theme
it?
that I'm really, really interested in because the folklore surrounding shapeshifters is so fascinating to me. So I am looking forward to working on that. But as I said, I just put it on the back burner for a few months until I get my breath back and I can properly delve into it.
All right. So, Kmye, dream project. You had time to think.
Yeah. So my dream project is something I have mentioned quite a few times online before. So I inherited from my grandfather when he passed away a collection of tales and lore that he wrote down from childhood memories from his childhood in Brittany. And some of these tales are pretty famous. There's like Tristan and Isolde, there's the city of Is. Quite a few are known, and a few of them are as far as I know, they've never been put in writing. And I would really, really like to make a project around them. I don't want to illustrate them literally because, like, they're old tales. They're quite judgmentals in some way, which is not the story I want to tell. But there's a lot of really good content in there that I would like to work into a sort of world building, lore experiment of illustration and stories. And so there's two problems with this project. The first one is similar to what Heather just said, is that I have no idea exactly what I want this to look like and how I want to do this. So I've started to do some concept art and some work around this, but I don't really know which way to start with this project. And the second one is that because it comes from my grandfather, who I loved very much, there's a lot of emotional weight on this project, and I want to do it right. But on the other hand, it's never going to be perfect anyway. So I should, like, if I wait too long, I will never do it, and I would rather have it done than have it perfect but not done. If that makes sense.
Want something to be there, so you don't
Yes.
wait forever and then nothing is there and can be seen.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that sounds so exciting, you know, having that weight of information.
Yeah, I mean it's really lovely. It's this really nice collection of stories on basically how Brittany was founded and how it started as a land, and with all kinds of legends on mermaids and how they ruled the sea. And it's like, I just love it. It's just like, it's a lot of information and a lot of work, and I don't even know if I want to make it into a book, or the initial project was to make like some kind of animations with it, but I don't really have the skills for that. So yeah, I need to work it out.
For books, I like everything to be a book. So just personal preference here.
Okay,
Book.
this is noted.
Okay. What's the project you're most proud of that you've ever made? Can we start? We just go the other way around this
No,
time.
can I get a couple of minutes, because
Okay,
I
right,
need to
then
think about
Heather.
this one. Yeah.
We're going the normal way around.
I have a very easy answer to that, and it's this one.
Aww.
Purely because it was my first, the first thing I put so much of my faith in, and I didn't know if it was going to work, and I knew that it was a lot of obscure information and folklore that I had no idea if people would be interested in, and it turned out that, hey, people are actually interested in this stuff, and I did something that people can enjoy, and yeah, so I think that's it for me.
Okay, Heather.
I don't really have an answer for that. There are things that I felt good about that have been surpassed or supplanted or at least faded into the distance as time passes. There are things that I thought I did rather poorly that have been on cards or in games that people loved. And people will love things that I perhaps do not with the same enthusiasm. And I know it has picked up the luster of the game it's associated with. The project that has given me the most to grow with over the years was actually a weird little series of sketches that turned into a sketchbook that turned into my collection of short stories. And I think it's because people I respected would pick it up and look at it, and they'd read some of it, and they'd turn to me and say, "You can write," with that same air of surprise that they used to say, "You can draw," because apparently I have the face of someone who can neither write nor draw. Yeah, but that weird little project, which started out as a sketch a week of drawing an imaginary monster, actually has turned into that became a sketchbook that became the seed of the world building that I'm enjoying at this phase of my life. So never underestimate the value of weird little series, because they can grow into other things that are really rather wonderful and supportive.
Yeah, also, I think regular projects where you do something over a longer time because you can change and grow and try new things, and there's less pressure on each piece. So yeah.
Yeah, any kind of system you can put in your life, whether it's a month where you do a sketch a day, if you have that kind of time available, or a sketch a week, or a painting a week, any kind of series that keeps you doing iterations and new versions of things over time is actually rather wonderful for an artist. I think it can feed an artist in a lot of ways. So yeah, that weird little poorly defined project has actually been very useful in years.
Okay, Kmye, have you thought of something?
Yeah, so I was reflecting that I haven't actually completed a lot of projects. Much of my art has been like slightly disjointed illustration that I do as like for themes and as inspiration comes. So what I ended up picking is actually the card game that we did last year with Changeling, and it's not a plugin for Changeling. It's just I'm really happy that we did this. I had a lot of fun participating in this project. I think everyone did a fantastic job. I liked the card I created for the game as well, and I think the product in the end just looks so precious.
It is such a pretty thing.
Yes. So yeah, that's the one I picked because I was really so happy to be working with all of you guys. I know that not everyone who is in this call participated to this project, but it was really great. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's such a pretty object.
It is, yeah.
And it's nice to work with a lot of people on something.
Yeah, it was just like this project where I was working with so many of my like friends, but also artists that I really respect and enjoy, and yeah.
Yeah, so there's been actually a related question, which is whether you have an artist friend or colleague that you exchange information on techniques or dreams or aspirations with, on a regular basis. And if you do, how you met them. You can continue.
I think that's what Changeling is, isn't it? I mean, at least for me, when I have like an issue or when I have something that I'm really excited about, that's what I share with you guys. So that's our little comfort, safeness. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
I think that Changeling is, yes, the major focus in my life right now for that kind of exchange. And I think it's an optimally sized group. I think if you get larger than 30 or 40 people, you get outside the sphere of people you can hold in your brain. So the Sisterhood of Fantastical Artists is also a lovely group, but it's 10 times as large and thus 10 times as unfamiliar when I go into it now. But Changeling is of a size where it feels almost like a village rather than a city. And when I have a stupid question that I want to ask, I don't feel entirely as if I'm going out in public among strangers to be stupid in public. So, yeah. So, and many of the friends that I have now that I exchange one-on-one chats with or have gone to events with are started out as Changeling meetups or art group meetups. So, agreed.
Yeah, for me it would be Changeling as well. I think at least in terms of exchanging like critiques and information and tips and like very artistically oriented information. I do have a couple of friends who are artists. I don't get to meet a lot of people because I don't do conventions, so I rarely get to meet people face to face. But I have a couple of people who I met through art and who are, I mean, they're still artists, but they're mostly my friends at this point. And they don't necessarily do the type of art that I personally like, but like we're still very close and we exchange emails and chats, and we sometimes see each other like in real life for holidays and they're mostly people that I met like maybe 15 years ago on DeviantArt, if some people remember DeviantArt. And we've stayed friends since, so that's really nice.
It's cool. I do love that we're all a Changeling family, because that's mostly for me as well. It's like the little corner of Facebook, the little corner of the internet. Otherwise, I have one friend, she's a photographer actually, and Elena Helfrich, she just really, really amazing work, and we sometimes Skype and catch up on things, and it's actually really helpful that she's not an illustrator, and it's helpful to her that I'm not a photographer, so we have a little bit of a less biased idea of what we're doing, and you have a little bit of an outsider perspective, but we have very similar tastes for our artwork, so it works quite well. And we met because she wrote me an email because she was a fan and asked whether I wanted to collaborate with her, and I knew her work, and she wrote me, and I was like, oh my god, your work is amazing, and yeah, of course, let's collaborate. And we kind of did on a few pieces, but never. It was supposed to turn into something big, but it was like something that is happening in the background, very slow. But we're friends now, so that's even better. And
That's the best collaboration you can find.
yeah, it's much more valuable and important. So yeah, that's that. But otherwise, I had people throughout art school that I was exchanging with, but that kind of lost its way because we never see each other really. But so,
I always wonder if that's the case, because as someone who didn't go to art school, I always had this feeling that all the cool kids who went to art school kind of hang out with each other and, you know, they have their own circles. And I was under the impression that if you don't come from those circles, then that's it for you. But, well, you can still find your own people if you don't come from art school.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And in my experience, so I have actually met quite a few people that I like knew their art from the internet just by emailing and saying, well, I'm coming to, if I had known Natasa to were in Edinburgh, I was there a few weeks ago, and I would have said, well, not a few weeks ago, a few months, it was probably in November. But I would probably have said, do you want to go and get coffee?
Oh, we should have done that. Well, next time.
Yeah, well, next time I get to come from work sometimes, so I've done this a few times, and it's always really nice to just meet the people in real life and just not through the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last year, Jenna Cass, she was writing on Twitter, I think, or Facebook, that she was going to be in Berlin. So I contacted her and was like, you're in Berlin, I'm in Berlin, do you want to meet up? And we were mutuals in a way that we knew of each other's work, and we never really doing a lot of chatting or so, but we respected each other and were co-fans, and so it was like, yeah, let's meet up, and we did get to hang out. So usually now that I'm in Berlin, which is a place where people go sometimes, and I see one of the people I'm following and they follow me, and then I jump over my own shadow and go, hey, do you want to meet up, go to a cafe or something? I'm awkward. Never mind. And people are much more receptive. Usually they're very nice. So yeah, that's the thing. I feel like it's
I think I can relate to that. Yeah.
cool. Yeah, we have been speaking for an hour now. Thank you very, very much for being here with me and doing this.
Thank you for hosting.
Absolutely, yes.
That's so my extroverted self can shine in this hard time. So yes, it's all for me. No, thank you very much. Your insights were great, and it was lovely to have you. Somebody asked whether they could see my artwork in large, and I think that because I never see myself in the big screen, and that's what's being streamed, I would need to be the only person on the call, so I will have to awkwardly ask you to hang up on me, so I end up being the last one standing, and people can see my artwork. As I said, it's all about me, least important person here, but yeah, so, and maybe we can just imagine you all get a standing ovation before you click turn off. So like you're being on stage and the play's over and you come and you bow and we clap for you and then you log off and then it's the next
And then the
one's
lights
turn.
go down.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, are we done? It was lovely being a part of this meetup. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will talk to you later.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm the last person left. So this is the artwork. It's the art. Also my face. No, not like this. Artwork there. Artwork. So weird. The stream is lagging, so I feel like you don't see it yet. You will. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please tune in again next month. And somebody's writing me on Facebook, so it's time to go. Have a lovely day, evening, or wherever you might be, whenever you might be. Yeah, thank you. It's getting so late.